Aloha.
Hello, John.
Aloha, John. How are you?
Just fine. And how are you folks? I got several PowerPoint presentations, consultations, one for Baha'is and one for what I call the civilian edition.
Mostly my work is in rural development, but the older I got, the more I kind of specialized in things like banking and insurance and that sort of stuff. And as far as consultation goes, I used consultation in the teams that I managed. I was a regional manager for the last 20 years of my career, and often using a lot of Baha'i principles and consultation.
Sarah, tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a writer. I've been writing for clients, technical writing and business and marketing writing. I actually wrote a book on consultation too. I just wanted a very simple, short explanation of it so that I could share it with my colleagues. And since then, all kinds of opportunities have been opening up for facilitating learning between groups and within groups. And so I'm working on a number of projects, and one of them is this course with the Wilmette Institute, working with Gary.
Have you interviewed Bob Rosenfeld?
Rosenfeld, no. Sarah?
Oh, well, you should. He's the, I worked for him for a year in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
He has a company called Connections, and he uses consultation quite extensively there. I give you, while I was working there, there was some geologists from ExxonMobil that were having some trouble with some processes. And so he gathered a group of high innovative people of different fields and put them together for a session. One part of it, even they went over to a Buddhist ashram for a little while and spent some time there. And they had people from different disciplines. Some didn't know anything about oil at all. At the end of the 3 days, they were making comments, and the guy who was leader of the group said, "We accomplished more in 3 days than we had in 3 years grappling with this problem." And Bob has a whole bunch of stories like that. It would be well for you to get in touch with him. What I normally do when I'm working with groups, I take a very simple kind of thing, and it's very effective. I'm sure you're familiar with it. They just take an empty egg carton and ask them how many ways you can use it. And I have them write it down. And then depending on how large the group is, I'll divide them into subgroups. Of course, it's kind of phony because I'm holding the egg carton, and it's going to be different when they have a textile, a different situation. But anyway, they then put them into groups, small groups, and give them each one an egg carton. And then I ask them as a group to list as many things as they can. And of course, the numbers just on an individual basis, I'll probably get as high as 7 or 8 ideas. But when they get into the groups, they get into 20 ideas. And so I said, okay, what happened here? How come the same people, and of course, there's a lot of new ideas. How come the same people? Then I go through a little song and dance. I say, each of us has billions of bits of information kicking around in our skull. And this is just data, it doesn't mean anything. Now, if some subject comes up and I have 5 ideas about it and you have 6 ideas, and we start talking about it, if we are, how shall I say, if we do it on a friendly basis, and we start sharing these ideas, as you share your 6 with one of your 6 with me, I say, oh, wow. And then I reflect it back to you, only slightly different, obviously, from what you said. And so hey, that sparked something with him. And so what happens is when we are sharing these ideas with each other, we're generating new ones. And so 5 plus 6 does not equal 11. It equals 20 or 50 or 100 because we're coming up with all these ideas. Not all of them are good. So there's two things that are happening. One is those ideas which are not very good, we don't even think about. They just get sort of dropped on the floor. And we just move on and concentrate on those things that are good. And we talk back and forth. And pretty soon we come into one or two on this particular problem we had to begin with, come with one or two or three or four things that really look exciting that we can work with. And I say, this is the way consultation works.
Yeah. And
That's a great exercise.
Yeah.
That's the starter. Then we get into things.
Keep talking, get into things, give us some ideas, you know. We're working with these students, with these participants in the course, and they may know something about Baha'i consultation. Many of them do in Wilmette Institute. They might come from a background of the Baha'i faith. And
depending on the situation, I oftentimes just use a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Although the PowerPoint is just a prop because I'm narrating all the time and talking about different things. And then depending on the group and the situation, I like to say, give me a problem that you've been grappling with that you haven't been able to solve. And then I say, okay, let's talk about that. And then I just sort of step aside and let them play around with that. And it's kind of interesting to see what happens.
How do you make the presentation different if you're talking to a Baha'i audience than if you're talking to a civilian audience, as you say?
Well, I usually use my prop of PowerPoint. In fact, one time I was going to India and I missed a plane. And so I got there about 3 o'clock in the morning and I had a 10 o'clock appointment to give a presentation to a group of journalists in a journalist school. And I didn't get a whole lot of sleep and somebody woke me up and I was stammered over there and struggled through it. But I was so thankful to have the prop of the PowerPoint presentation because otherwise I usually, when I go to India, I usually try to get there a day or two early so I can get a little bit adjusted. But there I had about 6 hours. But it was, I leaned on the PowerPoint presentation and people were raving about it afterwards. And I was only semi-conscious. And that's what I use.
What if I, let me show you, let me switch my screen again. What if I asked you to talk through this PowerPoint and let me record it? Where you talk about the circle of truth, you know, and let me see.
That's my PowerPoint.
I know.
They have mutual respect, trust, and
that's my voice.
Judgments
Oh
are
my God,
suspended,
that is your voice.
while ideas mingle
I didn't
freely.
know there was a voice in the PowerPoint.
Each one has some knowledge and opinions.
So I've already got your
B
kind of like a
knows the
report.
most about the subject.
I love this illustration.
Funny, I do too. That's why I always use them. In fact, I used a couple of them.
Yes.
So,
Okay, when I'm done with it, I'll say this was a this was a product of consultation. I'll say that years ago I was talking with, what's his name? And he gave me the idea of the circle of truth.
Yeah.
And Ramsey Zane, another person would be well for you to talk with in Lebanon. You know Ramsey?
Actually, he's the one, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one that did that PowerPoint. His name was on it. I think it was Ramsey.
Oh yeah, because I credit Ramsey and the other fella.
And he also teaches at
He
Wilmette.
had the background was his.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint was mine.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a collaborative sort of thing.
Listen.
The way I illustrate that is that if you're going to go on a trip and you need a pilot, you might consult as to who's going to be the pilot. And once you've reached that decision, when he's in the cockpit, shut your mouth.
Yeah, that's more or less what another person said, but he used another. I think he used the analogy: there's a fire, and you're not going to sit around and consult. Okay, what are we going to do now? There's a fire, and you know the guy who's
Yeah.
so
Yeah, you can consult as to before the fire. You can consult as to what we're going to do when if a fire starts,
yeah.
and that's good judgment. But once it gets started, people just have to do their stuff.
And the other thing that this book by Michael Burke has a lot in is he's been in what I might define as rather toxic business environments where there's quite a bit of ego in the meetings. And so in the book that he wrote, which is kind of a novel, but he uses a lot of kind of circumstances that he had personal experience with in his business life. He talks about the environment and the culture in the Western world, particularly in the United States today, where competitiveness and ego is something that's quite common. You see a lot in business, and of course, it is toxic to Baha'i consultation.
Yes, I tell the story about people who are in a plane crash on a desert island, or on an island, not a desert island, but on an island, and there was all communications are shut off, and this was a particular plane that people didn't know. It was a secret trip, and so they snuck off, and people didn't know what was going on. And they get down to this place, and they don't know if they're ever going to be found, they're ever going to get off. They're going to stay there for 2 days or for the rest of their lives, and so they have some decisions to make, and they have to build a house, they have to find food, and these kinds of things. In the plane wreck, there was some material left over that they could work with, so they had some tools. But anyway, if one person wants to build a house up on top of a hill with a nice view, somebody else wants to build it down by the river where they have quick access to water, and if they argue over it, nothing's going to get done. But if they decide to work together and start consulting on where to go, they're going to be able to find food, they're going to be able to get their housing, going to get everything. But if everyone wants to go their own way, they're going to have nothing but chaos, and cannibalism will end up.
Even for me, the thing that always I think is important is, although we may objectively approach aspects of consultation about the facts and things, there is a subjective, I think, element to it also. I don't know if you feel that way, but I've always felt that way.
Well, I think that's kind of key. In the restaurant business, they say you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. And so you have to talk to where the person's heart is.
Baha'u'llah called consultation a lamp of guidance. He said the heaven of divine wisdom is illumined with the two luminaries of consultation and compassion. Take ye counsel together in all matters, inasmuch as consultation is the lamp of guidance which leadeth the way and is the bestower of understanding. This divine gift enables all matters to be resolved through discussion rather than resorting to confrontation and contention. How does this work? What makes it happen? The following slide presentation illustrates how any group of people can come up with ideas that are far superior to what they could do individually. Each of us has billions of bits of data in our mind. However, Data are not facts, and facts are not knowledge or ideas. Thoughts, ideas, and understandings come from combining unconnected data. Genius includes combining data in new and unusual ways. Any group can create its own genius by following certain principles. This genius, which is the result of the interaction of our minds and hearts, is what produces the good results. Baha'is call this process consultation. Consultation is searching for the truth of a matter with a spirit of mutual respect, trust, and amity to reach an understanding or take appropriate action. In order to test this idea, a group of people were given individual intelligence tests. This test is called the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale and has 11 subtests. Next, they were taught the basic principles of consultation. This included some practice in consulting. 4 subtests that seemed most appropriate were selected for testing the value of consultation. The first subtest was a test of information. It asked such questions as, how tall is the average woman? The second test was a vocabulary test. It simply asked what certain words. The third test was called similarities. It is a test of relationships and asks such questions as, in what way are a dog and a lion alike? The fourth test was comprehension, sometimes called a test of practical wisdom. It asks situational questions such as, what is the thing to do if you are the first person in a theater to see smoke and fire? They then consulted on these 4 and reached conclusions as a group. There were 3 sets of scores. Individual scores, that is, the score each one earned by himself or herself. The composite score, that is, the best answers were combined on a single score sheet and scored to combined thinking before there was any consultation. And the third score was the group score, which came from consultation. This was the score attained by the group consulting on the question. The first 2 subtests, information and vocabulary, deal with things that are known. In the bar graph, the red shows the composite score, and the green the group score. As can be seen from the graph, there was no significant improvement from consultation. The group did not create new information from consultation, but shared what was already known. The third subtest, similarities, shows relationships. In this one, the group went from the 60.8 percentile to the 82.3 percentile. That is an increase of 2/3 of a standard deviation. By consulting on the subject, the group gained a better understanding of relationships. This is a significant difference. The fourth subtest, comprehension, is sometimes called a test of practical wisdom. It calls for judgment in certain situations. It asks such questions as, what is the thing to do if you are the first person in a theater to see smoke and fire? The group went from the 71.5 percentile to the 99.4 percentile. That is an increase of 2 full standard deviations. That is a score associated with genius. Consultation enabled them to make better decisions with the information they had. Now we get into another illustration, and that is called the circle of truth. It shows the dynamics of a consultation. This presentation itself is a product of consultation. There have been many discussions with different people about the subject, and the idea of a circle of truth was suggested by Dan Reimer. It was described in Developing Genius by John Kolstoe. The PowerPoint presentation was originated by Ramsey Zane with later modifications. 6 people with the imaginative names of A, B, C, D, E, and F gathered together to consult on a subject. The best answer, that is, the gem of truth, is somewhere within this circle of truth. The people who are consulting have mutual respect, trust, and amity. Judgments are suspended while ideas mingle freely. Each one has some knowledge and some opinions. B is the most experienced and knows a great deal about the subject. Much of what he knows is inside the circle of truth, but some of what he thinks he knows is wrong. C shares some thoughts with B, as in point number 3, but has other ideas too. Some of them, 5, are inside the circle of truth, and some are not. D see things differently. While some of his ideas are similar to B and C, some are not. E has thoughts that are very different from the others. Some of his ideas are inside the circle of truth, such as 8, and others outside. Note that C and E have about the same amount of information and about the same portion of what is true and what is not. However, C's ideas would appear to have greater validity because his thoughts are more in common with others, while E has ideas that are different from everyone else. Everything F understands is not only different from the others, it is all wrong and outside the circle of truth. A has no opinion and may not even know for sure why the meeting was called. If a vote were taken at this time, 6 would be the chosen spot, since that has the greatest overlap. Instead of voting, they consulted with respect, trust, and amity. With good consultation, understandings expand and opinions shift. Even F, while still thinking differently from the others, is brought closer to reality. Finally, the gem of truth is found. It is found in a place that no one had suspected. Often, the gem of truth does come as a surprise. Yet, once identified, it is very often recognized and agreed upon by all. It is not clear from this who was the first to discover the gem of truth. It could have been F because it was close to his reasoning, or B, who knew the most, or A, who may not even have said anything up to this point. Who made the greatest contribution? All are important. Change any of the people, and the dynamics of the group changes. So does the nature of its genius. It is possible that A never said a word, yet his very presence could make a profound difference. You cannot predict who will be first to discover the gem of truth, or who will be the one to voice the genius of the group. There is another aspect to consider. What happens when people try to consult with disrespect, mistrust, suspicion, and enmity? As before, each one has his or her own experience, knowledge, and opinions as they enter together for consultation. As they discuss things with mistrust, opinions still shift, but in a different way. And instead of expanding and coming together in unity for a sharper focus on the issue, there is division. They don't share as much with each other, and positions are taken. Partnerships and parties developed. When people attempt to consult with disrespect, mistrust, and enmity, the voice of the genius is silent, and the truth is never found. All matters for decision come from some source. Consultation follows a process. It begins when someone acknowledges a problem, question, request, or has a random thought. The first thing that is needed is getting a proper understanding. That includes getting the background information and being able to get the relevant facts and know how they relate to the question being considered. From there, the process involves that of deciding. That includes many steps and stages, including idea generation, development, refinement, conclusion, and summary. Leadership is important throughout this process, but it is not authoritarian. The leadership role actually shifts from person to person. For instance, the one who has the most information on the subject may take the lead, helping others gain a better understanding. Some people are good at generating ideas, and they take the lead in bringing up new possibilities. Others are good at refining and developing the ideas generated by someone else, and take the lead for that part of the discussion. There are people who have the ability to bring things to a conclusion and to make clear and concise summary statements. All these qualities are necessary, and no one is equally skilled at all of them. Good contribution uses skills and abilities of all, and different people bring different capabilities to the conference table. When they mingle in the right atmosphere, marvelous results are produced. Finally, there is the matter of doing. It does not matter how good a decision is made if it is not put into action. Careful consideration needs to be given to leadership and promotion. In general, consulting groups do not do things. The group makes decisions, but people do things. In order for anything to be done, the will and energy must be present to carry the idea forward. When provisions are made for these elements, the ideas can be carried out. Finally, there is a need for assessment and modification. Regardless of origin, once under discussion, the matter and ideas related to it become the property of the group and deserve conscientious attention. While the chairman remains in charge, leadership actually changes as different ones lead the group to new information, understanding, and insights. The chart showed specific steps. Actually, these overlap, and each step may come into play several times. Baha'i consultation is more than just making good decisions. Its purpose include, first and foremost, promoting unity and concord, embodying compassion, reflecting the spirit of the writings, promoting the process of entry by troops, and finally, making good decisions. It is important to know how people can make sure they are consulting in a manner that will gain the best results. In the Baha'i writings, there is specific guidance. Among other things, they cover the attitudes, which Abdu'l-Baha called the prime requisites. These are the fundamental elements that must be present in order for consultation to happen. There are also the necessary conditions, and finally, carrying out those decisions. Abdu'l-Baha has given a promise of divine assistance when consultation is carried out properly. However, it may not be as simple as it sounds. The Universal House of Justice said, quote, "You must endeavor to develop skill in the difficult but highly rewarding art of Baha'i consultation, a process which will require great self-discipline on the part of all members and complete reliance on the power of Baha'u'llah," close quote. What is so difficult about it? What self-discipline is required? Abdu'l-Baha called the 7 attitudes the prime requisites. These are more than noble words and nice thoughts. Care is needed, first of all, to understand them, and then great self-discipline and practice is required to put them into practice. These are purity of motive, radiance of spirit, detachment from all save God, attraction to the divine fragrances, humility and lowliness amongst his loved ones, patience and long-suffering in difficulties, and servitude to his exalted threshold. These requirements deserve careful attention, study, and consultation in order to get a better understanding of what is required is part of the process. Purity of motive involves putting aside all other considerations and concentrating on the issue at hand. It also means truly understanding that the best decisions come from the group and not from individual radiance of spirit. Few things add to creativity as much as radiating a joyful attitude. Detachment from all save God. This is one of the most challenging attitudes to maintain. Among other things, it involves giving up ownership of your own ideas and suspending all judgments until the discussion is complete. Attraction to divine fragrances suggests basic motives and what captures a person's individual attention. Humility and loneliness amongst his loved ones, being full of pride or having a boastful attitude, actually interferes with consultation. Everyone's presence is important, whether or not they make any direct contribution. Patience and long-suffering in difficulties. There is often a temptation to look for quick solutions. These are not always the best. Servitude to his exalted threshold. In many situations, people with authority make decisions, and it is easy to develop a sense of superiority. In Baha'i consultation, the attitude is to realize that those consulting are being of service, and that service is in reality to the divine threshold itself. Then there are the conditions of discussion. When you look at them carefully, you see that they include amity, harmony, trust, agreed upon method for discussion, and common purpose and focus. The first condition of absolute love and harmony. This is more than being nice to each other. It involves seeing one another with the eye of the love of God. The second condition is that the members of the assembly should unitedly elect a chairman and lay down guidelines and bylaws for their meetings and discussions. The chairman should have charge of such rules and regulations and protect and enforce them. The chairman acts as a sort of manager to direct the flow of discussion and enforce the rules. However, he has no greater vote than any of the others. The other members should be submissive to the chairman and refrain from conversing on superfluous and extraneous matters. They must, when coming together, turn their faces to the kingdom on high and ask aid from the realm of glory. Abdu'l-Baha said, they must then proceed with the utmost devotion, courtesy, dignity, care, and moderation to express their views. Devotion is to God, the matter under discussion, and serving those concerned. Courtesy has been referred to as the prince of virtues. Consultation, marked by respect for other members and courtesy, promotes the best thinking in others. Among other things, this involves never belittling another's person or the contributions being made. Dignity reflects the self-respect each one has and the attitude each one has toward others. Care in preparation for the meeting, listening attentively to others, and carrying out any assignments are fundamental to good consultation. Moderation in presenting your own ideas in such a way as to inform others of your thinking without trying to persuade them is a key to getting good results. Each one is to express his or her own ideas and not speak as an advocate for another person. It is good to endorse the thinking of another, but it is not a matter of speaking in their behalf. There are many occasions when consultation flows smoothly with one idea leading to another until a conclusion is reached. There are other times when discussion is marked by sharp differences of opinion. Abdu'l-Baha said, the shining spark of truth cometh only after the clash of differing opinions. Differing opinions are good, but they must be clearly examined before any vote or a decision is made. As illustrated in the chart, there is more than one way to reach a good decision. For some, the smooth flow is the most pleasant route. However, when there is an intense focus on finding the best answer, even sharply clashing ideas can produce good results, even though it may be more difficult and cumbersome. The results are often spectacular. It is important to realize that it is the ideas that are to clash, not the personalities or partisan positions or posturing for other purposes. Those features lead to confrontation, and that defeats the purpose of consultation. Another feature of the process of consultation is that all contributions become the property of the group, rather than being vested in the one suggesting it. Once decisions are made, the decision becomes the decision of the group, not just the majority who voted in favor of it. All need to support it and make it work in the manner intended. There are some summary reminders. The underlying purpose for any group action is to promote unity and concord. Know that the best results come from the group, and follow the procedures. Remain detached. Maintain courtesy and moderation at all times. Listen attentively without interrupting. Each one express frankly and clearly his or her own views. Avoid discord. Suspend judgment until decision is complete. Make certain that decisions are carried out in the proper spirit and allow for review, evaluation, and modification as necessary. As a result, a better society was built, noted for amity, unity, and good decision-making. Great results can be produced. Just by viewing these slides, you have indicated a desire to use consultation as a decision-making process and to improve your capacity in this complex skill of consultation. By using this method, any group can make the best decisions of which it is capable. Thank you, because your concern contributes to the maturation of the wonderful gift of consultation.